This is my third and final video in the anti-racism unit for your class. One final thought before I change the subject. We talk a good deal about the African diaspora, and indeed we should, because people were ripped out of their homes in Africa, kidnapped and forced to work for free, and while being tortured and separated from their families and their language and their religion in the New World. Slavery was a great crime, and consequently, most people who call themselves Black because of their dark skin and because of the racism that they experience in the United States, among other things, don't have a complete picture of where their ancestors came from, what parts of Africa they came from, what smaller tribal nations they came from. And that is a great crime and a great loss. And I would say that while most African Americans are not aware of where they came from, they are aware that they don't know. And for some people, that's a very big deal, and for others, it might not be. But it is, in fact, a known thing, an acknowledged thing, that at some level they don't know who their ancestors were and what their ancestors believed in or thought or felt. But a lot of people will just tell you they're white, and white supremacists will tell you that that is the defining factor of who they are. But there's a little problem with that. White is not an ethnicity. White is a color, but let me give you the names of some of the ethnicities that are within light-skinned peoples from Europe. If you want to say you're European, that is something that a person could talk about, but European is not a unified thing. There are Macedonians, there are Celts, there are Romans, there are Etruscans, there are Hibernians, there are Picts, there are Welsh, there are Angles, there are Saxons, there are Northern Germans, there are Scandinavians, but within Scandinavia, there are Danes, there are Swedes, there are Finns, there are Icelandic peoples, there are the peoples of Languedoc, there are the Gauls, there are all the tribes, the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths that sacked Rome. All of these are ethnicities. If you're white and you're watching this video, what do you happen to know about yourself within this ethnicity? Could you identify the tribe you came from? You did come from a tribe at one point. You really did. And one of the things that struck me when I lived in France was there were people who might not have known a tribal name in Europe, but they were aware that their ancestors had lived in the same exact town for at least 700 years. No American, but the first peoples of America, the Native Americans, can say the same, and mostly they've been moved off the land where they had lived for centuries. So while we have not been the victims of a crime in the lack of knowledge about our ethnicity as white people, nobody kidnapped us. We came here as peoples, and maybe we were chased out of where we were from, but we were not kidnapped and brought here against our will in the vast majority of cases. But when people say they're white, they really don't know what they're talking about because they don't know who their ancestors were. And the lie that white supremacists say, it's a very dangerous lie, it's very seductive, I think, is that, for instance, if I go on, there's this one guy who is, I think he's the scariest man in America. He is a smart and disciplined Nazi. He has a website, and he has this video as an introduction to his website. And he basically suggests in the video that if you're white, if your skin looks like mine, well, I must be heir to Socrates and Shakespeare and all the genius of Isaac Newton And all the geniuses who have ever lived who were white, they're related to me. That's my people. And I need to get in touch with them and realize my own inner greatness. And if I have in any way failed to achieve that greatness of Shakespeare and Isaac Newton and Julius Caesar and Napoleon, well, you know what? It's because someone lied to me and told me I was small, because I'm the only great human on earth because of this color. Who doesn't want the genius of Shakespeare? I want the genius of Shakespeare. I don't mind admitting it to you, but I also recognize, because I know just a little bit about my ethnicity as an Irish person, I can identify the region of Ireland where my ancestors came from. And I'm reasonably sure of why they came over to this country. And I know pretty much what they did when they got here. But I know that that's a dang lie. My ancestors would have been spat on by Shakespeare, would have spat on somebody else, no doubt. When Socrates was thinking of all his brilliant things, my ancestors were picking fleas out of the backs of their goats on a very cold island where there was absolutely no cinnamon or cayenne pepper. It's a myth to suggest that European identity is a unified thing, that genius has that individuals may have. Genius is amazing and individual and wonderful. I don't believe genius is a lie. I believe that there are a million kinds of genius. The greatest genius that I know of, who came from the city I'm sitting in right now, New Orleans, his name is Louis Armstrong. He invented jazz. He basically invented the root of all American musics, except for the stuff that came from Scotland and my corner of the island, where my not so genius-like ancestors were picking out fleas from the backs of their goats, which kind of turned into Nashville music, but not exactly. Anyway, genius exists in all peoples, and white is not an ethnicity any more than the word black gives you more information about culture, tribal identities, except for the one built here, built right here, because there was a lack of other group to belong to, and there was lots of racism coming at the people of color in this country, and there was a kind of a way to build something out of nothing that is a form of genius. And I'm not saying that there aren't brilliant white geniuses. The very fact that I'm talking to you on this video is a sign that there are white geniuses, because some of them were involved in the formation of the technology that allows you to watch this video. Hooray! But white is not an ethnicity. I don't know what tribe they belong to. They aren't my family because of the color of my skin, any more than everyone who is black is in dark-skinned on planet Earth is a cousin. There's a whole theory called Pan-Africanism. I totally recommend looking into it. What I want you to know is that white is a human invention. It is largely used as a distinction that was used to identify a legal group in the United States who counted it as white mattered legally. And to some degree, even though there aren't laws banning it, the traces of that are still on our books. When my husband and I got married in the state of Mississippi, we had to identify our race on the marriage license. We weren't banned from marrying each other as we would have been 40 years earlier if we had been of mixed race. We're both white. But we're not of the same tribes. His people and mine did not get along in the Middle Ages at all. The fact that we still see this trace of this has to do with this invented obsession. And once you accept that white is an invented term, which does not mean that white skin is an invented color or that real ethnicity, I think I totally recommend everybody find out as to the greatest extent possible where their ancestors came from. I admire the Acadians, for instance, that know why they have traditions, and God love Cajun music. I really do love it. Et en plus, je peux parler un peu, je peux causer un peu comme un Cajun. Your great grandma was, because she was not considered fully white, if your family spoke like that, was told she had to abandon her language. She didn't have 100% white status exactly. And Cajuns in Louisiana were for a time, about 100 years ago, 150 years ago, depicted as less than fully ennobled by whiteness, which is just nuts. My point is, know your people if you like, but know that white is not a thing, except a legal thing, an invention in America. And that will help you understand the First White President article by Ta-Nehisi Coates, who gives you the history from way back. That's everything I wanted to say. Your ethnicity is beautiful if your skin is white, I am sure, and I would love to know about some of your noble ancestors, but I don't believe that all white people are one big family, and neither does the science of genetics, any more than the whole human race is one big family, which in fact seems to be more scientifically true. I'm signing off now. Bye.